Good morning. I'd like to share with you the last part, the third part of the Purloined letter we have shared in our previous lesson. Unfortunately, I have to divide this last part in two parts, in two separate parts, because the whole video will last around 29 minutes. So it is impossible to download the video on YouTube and then to post this video on the video section of the Unit 3 website. So this is the first part of the video. The Purloined Letter, Part 3, by Edgar Allan Poe, published in 1845. I dispute the availability and thus the value of that reason which is cultivated in any special form other than the abstractly logical. I dispute, in particular, the reason adduced by mathematical study. The mathematics are the science of form and quantity. Mathematical reasoning is merely logic applied to observation upon form and quantity. The great error lies in supposing that even the truth of what is called pure algebra are abstract or general thought. And this error is so egregious that I am confounded at the universality with which it has been received. Mathematical axioms are not axioms of general thought. What is truth of relation of form and quantity is often grossly false in regard to morals. For example, in this latter science, it is very usually untrue that the aggregated parts are equal to the whole. In chemistry, also, the axiom fails. In the consideration of a motive, it fails for two motives, each of a given value have not necessarily a value when united equal to the sum of their values apart. There are numerous other mathematical truths which are only truths within the limits of relation. But the mathematician argues from his finite truth through habit as if they were of an absolutely general applicability, as the word indeed imagines them to be. Bryant, in his very learned mythology, mentions an analogous source of error when he says that although the pagan fables are not believed, yet we forget ourselves continually and make interference from them as existing realities. With the algebraists, however, who are pagans themselves, the pagan fable are believed and the inferences are made not so much through lapse of memory as through an unaccountable addling of the brains. In short, I never yet encountered the mere mathematician who could be traced out of equal roots, or one who did not clandestinely hold it as a point of his faith that x squared plus px was absolutely, unconditionally equal to q. Say to one of these gentlemen, by way of experiment, if you please, that you believe occasions may occur where x squared plus px is not altogether equal to q. And having made him understand what you mean, get out of his reach as speedily as convenient, for beyond doubt he will endeavour to knock you down. I mean to say, continued Dupin, while I merely laughed at his observations, that if the minister had been no more than a mathematician, the prefect would have been under no necessity of giving me this check. I knew him, however, as both mathematician and poet, and my measures were adapted to his capacity with reference to the circumstances by which he was surrounded. I knew him as a courtier, too, and as a bold intriguant. Such a man, I consider, could not fail to be aware of the ordinary policial modes of action. He could not have failed to anticipate, and events have proved that he did not fail to anticipate the waylaying to which he was subjected. He must have for reason, I reflected, the secret investigation of his premises, his frequent absences from home at night, which were hailed by the prefect as certain aids to his success, I regarded only as ruses to afford opportunity for thorough search to the police, and thus the sooner to impress them with the conviction to which Germont, in fact, did finally arrive, the conviction that the latter was not upon the premises. I felt also that a whole train of thought, which I was at some pains in detailing to you just now, concerning the invariable principle of policial action in searches for article concealed, I felt that this whole train of thought would necessarily pass through the mind of the minister. It would imperatively lead him to despise all the ordinary nooks of concealment. He could not, I reflected, be so weak as not to see that the most intricate and remote recess of his hotel would be as open as his commonest closets to the eyes, to the probes, to the gimlet, and to the microscopes of the prefect. I saw, in fine, that he would be driven as a matter of course to simplicity, if not deliberately induced to it as matter of choice. You will remember, perhaps, how desperately the prefect laughed when I suggested, upon our first interview, that it was just possible this mystery troubled him so much on account of its being so very self-evident. Yes, said I remember his merriment well. I really thought he would have fallen into convulsion. The material world, continued Dupin, abounds with very strict analogies to the immaterial, and thus some color of truth has been given to the rhetorical dogma. The metaphor or simile may be made to strengthen an argument as well as to embellish a description. The principle of the vis in nature, for example, seems to be identical in physics and metaphysics. It is not more true in the former than a large body is with more difficulty set in motion than a smaller one, and that its subsequent momentum is commensurate with this difficulty, that it is in the latter that intellect of the vaster capacity, while more forcible, more constant, and more eventful in their movement than those of inferior grade, are yet less readily moved and more embarrassed and full of hesitation in the first few steps of their progress. Again, have you ever noticed which of the street signs over the shop doors are the most attractive of attention? I have never given the matter a thought, I said. There is a game of puzzles, he resumed, which is played upon a map. One party playing requires another to find the given word, the name of a town, river, state, or empire, any word, in short, upon the motley and perplexed surface of the chart. A novice in the game generally seeks to embarrass his opponents by giving them the most minutely lettered names, but the adept select such words as stretch large characters from one end of the chart to the other. These, like the over largely lettered signs and placards of the street, escape observation by dint of being excessively obvious. And here the physical oversight is precisely analogous with the moral inapprehension by which the intellect suffers to pass unnoticed those considerations which are too obtrusively and too palpably self-evident. But this is a point. It appears somewhat above or beneath the understanding of the prefect. He never once thought it probable or possible that minister had deposited the letter immediately beneath the nose of the whole world, by way of best preventing any portion of that word from perceiving it. But the more I reflected upon the daring, dashing, and discriminating ingenuity of Darcy, upon the fact that the document must have always been at hand if he intended to use it to good purpose. I have to stop here because we have reached the limit